In this tutorial, I'm going to show you some basic UV mapping techniques using tiling textures. So over here, I've already set up my material. I have a multi-sub-object material. This is going to allow me to assign multiple materials to one model. You'll see that I've gone through and I've named each of my materials. There's a wood, there's a stone, and then I also have what I call a strip texture. It's a trim texture, is another name for it. It's basically a series of tiling textures. They're not the sort of thing that you would tile across the side of a building, but usually for detail or decorative elements. Now I've already assigned this. You can see that I've assigned the multi-sub-object material, the parent node, the head node, to the main model. Right? It has little hash marks. The other ones have the hash marks. Each one of these is also set up to view inside the viewport. I've also gone through and named each of the materials. So here I have my model. You can see I've assigned materials to it. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a UVW map. And I'm going to set it to box. And I'm now going to look at what my most common value is, which is the length and width. I'm just going to paste that into the height as well, so that I now have a square box that's assigned to my model. I now have a base set of tiling UVs on my entire model because of this. So I like this. This is a good place to start. This gives you a basic set of UVs. I'm going to right click and say convert to edit poly to make that permanent. Now I want to go through and I want to work on creating the illusion of detail on this model by going through and mapping the coordinates for the tiling trim here. So I'm going to put on a modifier called UVW Map. Now UVW Map allows you to go through and per polygon or per vertex point go through and adjust UV coordinates. So if I zoom out here, you can kind of see this is what my base set of UVs is like. I can come over here to the side and I can select my different textures to see them. I can also come down to the bottom where it says all IDs and I could select just by specific ID. Now anywhere you see a green line on the model means that though that is a break where polygons are not connected inside a UV space. So if I wanted to go and select the wood on the top and move that, even though I'm set down to the strip texture down here, you could see I'm still able to just select anything I want. So if I go up to all IDs, you could see I could select it. And if I go to move it, you see that's going to move the trim texture as well. So what I need to do is I'm going to come down here to wood. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to region select so I get the wood. And you'll notice there's wood at the top and the bottom. I'm just going to break it. So now I can do whatever I want with it. It's not going to mess up the other side. F2 will allow me to toggle my visual here. And so if I want to make it look like the wood's more dense, I could just scale it. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select the strip textures. And I'm going to go through and select all the strip textures. I'm going to hit F2 to see them. If I orbit around, you see for some reason this polygon on the back is selected. So I'm going to hold Alt to deselect him. Control R to orbit around. Make sure I only have my trims. And now I'm just going to click the break button under Explode. There we go. So now when I region select, you'll notice I only get my trims. So the way this trim texture is set up, everything scrolls left to right. So I need to take my edge polygons here, and I'm going to select those and break them. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees. I'm going to take these polygons here, I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees as well. I'm going to go up to move and constrain my move to vertical up and down. And there we go. So now I have these guys selected. Let's also come in and say select inverted polygons. Alright, so none of the polygons are mirrored, so they're all facing the right direction. What I want to do now, I want to come in, I'm going to select this edge. There you go, you see those polygons, those edges. If I region select and grab edges, alright, so it looks like these guys here, if I grab them, I'm going to switch to polygon because it's easier to select and move in polygon. And kind of move these guys up, kind of place them pretty close. And then grab those edges. Alright, anytime you select a polygon, the shared edge will turn blue. So if I select this guy, I'm going to rotate him because now the shared edge will be at the top. I can just slide him right up. What I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to select each of these edges. I'm going to hit stitch and it's going to stitch them together. Because my goal is to come in here and I want to be able to take these pieces and effectively just kind of move them so that they sit and look like this brick here is sitting there right at the edge. But one thing that's going to help it out is if I go around, oops, let's open up my UV editor again. If I go around and I select my edges and I stitch them all together, I'll be able to make sure that the detail wraps around the side. And the reason we do this is we want to make our objects look like they're actually constructed out of something. So if it looks like there's a nice piece of brick sitting there at the top, it looks like it's constructed because you don't want this painted stone to crash right into the wood. That's not going to look like an object. There should be some amount of stone or wood that hangs over the side. And so by putting a nice trim on it, it looks like someone took the effort to go in and build a nice frame around it. Alright, so I think we've gone in and we've stitched all of our sides. So zoom out a little bit. And now I'm going to real quick go into vertex. And I'm going to use my quick aligns to align these all vertically, just like this. Make sure they're all lined up really nice and neat. I'm going to come in here and use my freeform. And I kind of want to place the base of this in this kind of darker spot. And then I'm going to hold shift and pull this point up so it goes to a dark spot. If you can have your textures kind of end, I'm going to come over here to display and turn off map seams so you can see this a little better. If you could get your textures to have some kind of, just a subtle bit of ambient there on the edge, it'll allow you to kind of hide some of where those connections are. It makes for a nicer effect, almost like it's got a little bit of edge that the light is getting trapped behind. But there you go, that's kind of the effect that we want. Now, some things to avoid. I did show you that there were snaps. You don't want to go in, if you take your vertex points like this and you align them straight, see what that does? It ends up creating distortion. Maybe not on the bottom, but on the top, you want to try and maintain actual polygon shape as you go. So I'm going to convert to edit poly here. If I wanted to change something after the fact, like say I was working on my model and I accidentally broke the UVs for this detail. If it's a tiling portion, it's actually really easy to fix. Select one polygon and then select all IDs with that same ID on it. And then I'm going to do, you can go ahead and reassign a UVW map to it. If most likely you're not doing a box. Chances are you're just going to want to tile it to a smaller value, like 512 by 512 by 512. That's way too much, so I might tile this by half. All right. And if it's not quite tiling, I can tell it to fit in this case. And again, remember, if I just square off my values, oops. There we go. I've squared off my values so now my texture tiles around the sides and convert that to edit poly. If I wanted to tile this texture more, I could put a UVW Xform on. And that's a quick way. You see how the polygon symbol is being assigned? It's an easy way to go through and say, like, I want to tile this texture 2 times. So now it's tiled more going around the sides. Right. If you want, this is also a convenient way to shift if you want to offset them. And then just collapse 2. And that's the basic concept behind tiling textures, right? The stitch tool is going to be your friend with that to try and get that illusion of actually looking like a nice tiling texture. So there you go.